I, Peter Markey, acting chair tonight. I call to order the July 13th, 2026 Agriculture Advisory Committee meeting at 6:20 p.m. We will begin with roll call. James McCool. Here. Natalie's there. John Mars. Peter Markey here. Brian Casey. Cole. Thank you. Chris O'Shea. Here. Daniel Theobald. Here. Marilyn Johnson. Here. San Mateo County Agriculture Commissioner Corinne Whittle. Farnborough Executive Director Jess Brown. Here. UC Co-option Andrew Miller. San Mateo County Planning Liaison Robbie Miller. Here. Do we have a quorum? Yes, we have a quorum. Okay, we will now move to public comment for items on consent agenda and to allow the public to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. If your subject is not on the agenda, the chair will recognize you at this time. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. All public comments must relate to something that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of this agency. If a commitment does not relate to the subject matter jurisdiction of this agency, we will interrupt your commitment and move to the next speaker as presiding officer of this meeting. I will determine whether a commitment is not related to the subject matter placed within the agency preview. Please note that the committee cannot discuss or act on any item not on the agenda. Please proceed with instructions.
Thank you, Chair. We will first call upon members in person, followed by speakers on Zoom. For in-person comments, please raise your hand and speak once public comment period is open. On Zoom, please use the raise hand feature or *9 if you are calling by phone. Once acknowledged, please start by clearly stating your first and last name for the record. And you may proceed with any comments in person, Mr. Chair.
Pardon me, what was that again? Okay, is there any public, first of all, is there anybody from the chair that would like to speak? Was there any public members who would have anything to speak? Acknowledge and person public members that wish to speak and
Through the chair, we do have one virtual hand raised on Zoom. If you have nobody wishing to speak in person, I can proceed with that comment.
Yes, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. We will call on Dr. Patrick Horn, and you will have 3 minutes. And as a reminder, this is for items on consent agenda or items not on the agenda. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. This is Patrick Horn. I serve on the Pescadero Municipal Advisory Council, and I have a couple of updates to inform the Ag Advisory Committee. The first is that in September, on a date to be determined, where PMAC will have a special meeting for our ag sector. We are waiting for the exact date. When the harvest report is done, we will get a presentation of that report. We're also inviting stakeholders and partners that are involved in ag to join a community roundtable so that we can understand on PMAC what your concerns are and how we might be able to support the work that you're doing. So that's one item. I will make sure that when the exact date is set, that you know, so that between now and then you can designate who you might want to send to that special meeting to represent the Ag Committee and participate in that community conversation. The second item for update is that we have a subcommittee on PMAC focused on the housing element, and we have 4 special needs housing element items in that we are focused on, and that also involves farm worker housing. At our next meeting of the Housing Element Task Force, the PMAC subcommittee, we're going to get a sites analysis from the county looking at what viable spaces might be available for development for farm worker and workforce housing. So once again, you might want to designate somebody from the Ag Committee to come to that subcommittee meeting for that presentation, to participate in that conversation with the community and the county. So I'll make sure when the dates are set that you're informed of that, and I hope that between now and then you have enough space and time to designate who might be the liaison from your committee to PMAC for those special meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other Oh, here. Okay, we got a comment with Carrie Burke.
Thank you, I forgot to, what I meant to say, I'm Carrie Gerd. We just want to let the committee know that, last Wednesday I attended a planning commission meeting here. And this the vote, application that you consider on Pescadero Creek Road, that 2-acre parcel was approved. It will be abandoning that existing well and drilling a new well, and so they got identified 3 sites on that very small parcel that can work and be consistent with their septic. So other than that, the application went through with several, I think 93 conditions. If they're the first thing they're going to do once the appeal period ends is drill the well to see if they can proceed with their.
So do you know what are they going to do with these?
I'm gonna get abandoned. Because it's just the proximity and it's because of, it wasn't really a drill to current specifications, it's just gonna be. They're to abandon that, and then they also have some riparian rights if they want to develop those, they have to go through whatever permits might be necessary, for the riparian.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there any other public comment? Is there any comment from the committee? Is there any other more comment online?
No further comment online. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now close public comment for items on consent agenda and items not on the agenda. Are there any comments from committee members? No. Are there any motion to set the agenda and approve consent agenda, which includes item 1, minutes from June 8th, 2026? I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. You have a second?
Leave the chair, actually, is our item 2? It doesn't look like she's here, so should we switch?
She was not aware that she was supposed to join us tonight, so I would suggest that we use that time for the work plan as planned, but allow the subcommittees to continue their conversations and get a bit further, and then meeting will likely be shorter than. So it's not really a deviation from the agenda.
Okay.
Do we have
There.
Second.
Dan Theobald second? All in favor, say aye. We vote on the minutes of June 8th, probably.
That was together.
That was good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have to abstain. I was not.
Give one extension.
I could abstain from
Oh.
voting
Okay,
because I wasn't at the meeting.
okay.
One extension, Marilyn Johnson. Okay, so now we will now move on to item 2. Work plan presented by Debbie, even though she's not here, but we're going to proceed without her. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess, did your subcommittees, I know there's not everybody here, does at least the subcommittees have at least one extra person?
I have nobody with mine.
Nobody with you? And you had 3 other members, okay. Let's see, well, we have, let's say, subcommittee, Peter and James, you had full subcommittee. And then, 3 out of 4,
Just
okay.
friends.
So why don't I suggest that these two subcommittees maybe present some stuff, or maybe they could have some more time to.
I think the second presents.
You go, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah, I noticed that. I think
Okay.
Okay, so
James and Peter, are you all ready to also?
think we need more time.
Okay, so probably, do you have any other suggestions?
If two subcommittees are ready to present and have discussion with members, that's great progress and we can just get going. And then Crystal, perhaps after those 2 subcommittees, you can just sort of tee out what your subcommittee is focused on and any thoughts you have, and then get input from you.
who do you want to go first?
Volunteer? Yes.
James, you want to start it?
Sure.
Okay.
So our goal outcome was to provide input on county policies as they come up. The first activity, action steps and levels of effort. I said the BLO is into the county presentation. That's quite a bit of effort. I feel like the county is mostly responsible for that. For timeline, I put all of ours are going to be ongoing status. I feel like our resource partners are going to be anyone from the council, especially Bobby, Mike, and Eliza, are great resources for us to know that may or may not be coming. And an outcome indicator of progress would be if we get presentation back to us with revisions with our input, and you can see that like it's been a evaluation. I said the next actionable thing would be that we need to be able to analyze the package ahead of time. We need to be able to read and understand what's going on so that we can have meaningful input on anything that brought to us so that it's not desperately reading through the packet as this big thing may be coming along. They see as responsible for that by themselves. A partner that they may have would be other members of the AEC or any members of the public that we can talk to about this between receiving the packet and the company. And the outcome and indicator of progress for me is going to be the discussions are more informed. It's less questions about the maybe like less questions about how things are working, but more about more targeted discussions on any new meeting enough. And that brings us to the last action step is to reduce discussion and increase decisiveness. And it's most of the AUC is responsible for that. The most important resources and partners to me are going to be the chair and vice chair to really help guide the discussions and then to help bring discussions to more actionable items and ways of bringing things forward and less talks of, well, let's just keep talking about it and pushing it to the next meeting, but more of, do we like it, yes or no, and move forward with that idea. We can say why or not. And to me, not having things get pushed into multiple meetings is a good indicator of progress. Those are the things that
You repeat just the first one that you mentioned?
The first one on my list.
Yeah.
Was being able to listen to the county presentations. So the county has to tell us, this is what we're working on, this is what's coming down the pipeline. And so an example of that would be when they were talking about revisions to the water regulations for farm labor housing. They said at that time that they were thinking about this, what is your input? And we talked about it before it was already set in stone and done.
Good, thanks.
Is there any questions and comments on this topic from our committee?
I guess one question I have, you were talking about analyzing or reading the packet, what are you thinking about?
Well, I think it's fine. It's just the AC members have to make sure that they really read all of it. We can't come to meetings having not read it and understanding and be surprised. That's definitely happened with some important regulations. Members won't know.
Is there any other questions or comments from the committee? Is there any comments from the public?
This is not the time for public comment, but I'm just sort of stepping in for Debbie here. I wonder if you had discussed about particular county policies that you wanted to provide input on, or if you wanted to keep this more on the mechanics of providing input.
For me, it's more open, specifically involved to wings and that audit stuff, the housing labor law revisions. I know that they were talking about changing some regulations to make it easier for farm labor housing to come up, as well as continuing to provide input on the P permits. But it talks about mostly P amendments, the agritourism backgrounds, the farm standard.
Would you want those references in this section of the work plan? Like as a
Sure, maybe just like as an example of that.
Any more comments from the committee subject? Ooh, James. If we want to call. Sure.
Yeah, so for our group, I'll just I think that's I'll sort of read through the different things that we discussed one by one. One of the areas, I guess kind of the overarching theme is simplifying permitting regulations and the new development policies and regulations to support county agriculture. As it pertains largely towards for simplifying permitting regulations. One of the areas that one member recommended was having one particular person in the planning department who handles all permitting and economic specifically relating to agriculture. And that way it's ensured that one person is an expert on all things relating to ag specifically, just because it is such a unique kind of permitting area for the county. This is a bit different than the role of the ambulance person, who's more of the liaison in terms of public sort of navigate the committees in the county. That really be this small permit person who will sort of handle this, or maybe it could be more than one person, but it's certain distant people in the county can be kind of focused on that. And then the other kind of item number 2 that we discussed as well was potentially allowing multiple homesteads or homes on economic property. So specifically 2 homes was brought up as kind of a number that could be a target. There should be some stipulations to ensure that this is happening on properties that are actively growing, like our farm businesses. So it would only be applicable to properties where the farmers are generating X amount of income per year. That number probably would be able to set that, but it would be kind of to ensure this is done in good faith. Alternatively, it can be also done by only being applicable to farms that have livestock contracts or an ag easement contract on their property to ensure that the property was being used for agriculture. And I think the idea of this partly is that the second unit could be a way of addressing some of the challenges from having multi-generational operations on the property, where the second one could be utilized, for example, for the children of whoever's there. Alternatively, it can also be used to help address like farmer housing crisis that we currently have, just by becoming a unit for folks who may work on the farm. The idea would be to keep it short and of how it's used to avoid additional regulations. And then and by the way, for those, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add just for long presentations. Okay. So the third item was addressing the topic of farm stands within the county. And I think there's some California law from my understanding of this that addresses this topic. And I think that the key thing the county should be ensuring is making sure that produce being sold on public farm stands is coming from Sacramento County growers. There could be use of a CPC certificate to regulate this, which a lot of farmers already have if they go to farmers markets. And the CPC could be sort of a simple way where county personnel could stop at our farm stand and check the CPC that's there and your proposed that is represented by Sacramento County growers, either their own growing products or do something as something cert on the CPC, kind of as our own version of farmers markets. That would just ensure that for sort of the privileges that farms are bringing in terms of having again the roadside farm stands, that would be sure it's actually built by Sacramento County builders. I don't think there's anything else that you guys like to add for that as well. And then the fourth item that we discussed.
So that's one thing up there is that we don't want to make it more difficult for farmers in the county to sell their things. So really just enforcing so that people who are trying to sell here and aren't legitimately growing in the county.
Yeah, that's thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, and I think we talked about the CPC document is a pretty simplified way of doing that because a lot of farmers in the county, I guess we go to farmers when starting up CPC. For farmers who don't do farmers markets and maybe don't have one, it's a pretty simple document to get. From my experience, it's like $100 which they do. And it doesn't require much of it. So just ensuring that you are situated when what you say you're growing. When it sounds okay.
And so I guess just an easy summary of that is just all roadside farm stands in the same standard as farmers market.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good way to define it. And therefore not adding the additional regulations on farms to the county. And then the fourth item that we discussed was on the topic of housing, of kind of what are creative ways to address the housing crisis that we in the specifically in the farm workers. And so one of the ideas that we discussed was allowing the farms to install sort of the equivalent of an RV park on their property. And so specifically the farm property owner would need to provide spaces for RVs that it provides septic, water, and power. And then allow farm workers to sort of quote unquote park their own tiny heated RVs on that property to use as housing. The county would be able to essentially work with the farmer and the farm workers with his property to make sure that the quality of service setup is safe from septic, water, and power, and then also would ensure that the RV itself is safe, which I think would in many respects be an improvement over sort of what we have kind of existing, where there are a lot of RVs on the coast that are not necessarily done so whether that's safe from a septic perspective or from a perspective. So as we start to legalize this process, that process of having an RV and doing so in a way that's like very much for the county, it kind of brings it to light where you're looking into some of the dangerous housing situations. One of the big advantages that can be perceived of this particular program is that one of the challenges that there's two different advantages related to this, but one of the big challenges I think with having housing on farms, is that often a farmer has housing that lost housing for farm workers, but then typically the challenge is the farm workers' housing is very contingent on the loan to that farm, and it creates a really, in my opinion, problem a labor situation that's sort of nobody's going to serve them essentially, where somebody feels like they have to work on their farm because of their housing. Considering the housing crisis that we have, they don't feel like they have a lot of options to just move elsewhere and find different jobs elsewhere because they lose their housing. The idea of this is if you have enough of these farms in the county, there's less pressure because some people always can be people trying to meeting if they're going to move it to a different farm. Probably a lot easier because they didn't have housing in a different farm. And the other advantage of this too is that a lot of the folks in the farming community, realistically, because of the high cost of housing in our county, which are obviously key factors outside of the county's control, most farmers just don't, it's not realistic for anybody to buy a home or property in the coast. It's true for many farmers, especially in the farming community. This would essentially maybe be a workaround of folks to actually buy their own home, whether it's a tiny home, for example, or an RV where it's a good way investment. There's a certain amount of self-determination to that seems valuable. And in addition to that as well, the current county programs to subsidize or offer affordable loans for low-income housing, obviously very much appreciated and I think are very important, but they're probably not the most efficient from a bank perspective as compared to how this program could be. This program would be relatively inexpensive from a county perspective, because if the county were subsidizing, it could be with the setup of sort of the art park, for lack of a better word, with the lower subscription power. And it could be even a subsidization directly to farm workers for their housing. And therefore, being that we're trying to address the farm crisis in the community, this would be sort of directly supporting the farmers to purchase their own homes. So I think this would be kind of an overarching, create sort of greater ground to this that I think is a bit different than the current approach. It's not said I'm using that as current programs have not ended this year, they have been, but I think this would be a way to kind of expand the reach of or the number of farm housing units that we can have this work. And I know I talked a lot on that one, but I don't know if you guys had any.
I just wanted to underscore that allowing the farm workers to own their house and move it between farms has a tremendous amount of benefits that I think everybody would appreciate.
I have a question. So the farmer is responsible for
The
stuff between the power.
Yeah.
And then the farm worker is responsible for providing the tiny home or the RV.
I think, I guess it's two different options. So let's look. I think it's optional. So if the farmer wanted to purchase the actual house for them, they could, but I think also if a farm owner wanted to purchase that unit, they could as well. And I think, realistically, it seems like to me that purchasing a home is really out of reach for many of the folks who live in the Grand Coast. But the purchasing time home is within reach. So it seems like this would be a relatively cost efficient way for the farmer to be able to expand housing on property by offering that. But I think if the farmer didn't feel obliged, they inclined to purchase the tiny home units and put them on as well, I wouldn't see that as being an issue. Perhaps there are elements that we should discuss, but
Well, one of the things I really like about it was
Chair recognizes Daniel Theobald for the record.
no, thank you. Well, I was going to say one of the things I really like about it is that the county could have a program to help farm workers buy a tiny home that meets whatever regulations. And then we're actually, we're not doing something where the county is basically in the long term giving money to farmers as much as they're giving resources to the farm workers. So this whole program is supposed to be for in the first place. So it seems to really align the interests of the program in the long-term outcomes. Because I think one of the big fears has been, we're going to put money into this farm and then eventually they'll use it for whatever, and it's not going to serve farm workers. So if we actually allow the farm workers to buy their own home and have the flexibility to, move that home or live on a different farm too. But it just seems to solve a lot of the inherent problems with the current program.
Chair recognizes Shay.
So
Just for Shay.
with that, if the farm worker is getting the contract with the family with the home, and it's their tiny home, does that take away some of the pressure off the farmer for being responsible for the upkeep of that home? Because like when task force comes out and there's things that are not up to par, it's the farmer who's having to be now financially responsible. But now if it is owned by the farm worker, it is now their responsibility.
that's one of the big issues.
Okay.
I mean, it makes it frankly easier for the farmer, and I think addresses like the housing crisis we have specifically our farm workers, when that's not currently addressed. Yeah, I think obviously the farmer, whoever the property owner essentially will be responsible for water, septic and power.
And those permits in the whole.
Yes, and those things, yes. Yeah, those were
Foreign
different.
costs.
Yeah, or kind or something like
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I think the actual unit itself would be the responsibility of the person who's in the issue for that. So,
And it's based on the size, would put a cap on how many people can reside in.
yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I think
Because they all have families.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Supposed to be family.
Yeah. It's one of the tricky parts.
It's like a vacation.
Yeah, it's one of the tricky parts is I think from the United States, 399 square feet is the size that's allowed. I think it's larger in like Canada, for example. In terms of how it qualifies as a society. I think though that is realistically, well, it's small. You know, there are potentially even in terms of like putting multiple different rooms together. I mean, there's a lot of tiny homes down that like we live park around here and park around here. And we have a walkway between the two of them, and that's really addressed on the family issue. So I do think that like obviously it's not ideal necessarily, but I think in comparison to what I think we have a lot in coast, which is just like translate conditions and a lot of folks who work on farms full time and other full time on that part. So I think this seems like a better option, safe option for having. Yeah,
Just as one,
Chair recognizes Jay McCoo, record.
So I know talking to Steve Monowitz about this in the past and in some other meetings, he's been pretty against having the tiny homes on RVs and stuff like that. So I am curious to favor all of this and usually sorry. But I don't necessarily think it's a terrible idea for the county to really be thinking about this. Because I know when I talked about it with Steve, one of the big issues was, well, a tiny home isn't large enough to support a family. And there was kind of a disconnect between the reality of, well, not all of the farm workers are families. Within our farm labor camp, we had several units that were just designated to individual people and single families. And so having a continuity of that to be really important when they think about potentially allowing stuff like RVs and tiny homes is that not all farm workers are families. Some of them will be single.
single couples.
Chair recognizes Marilyn Johnson.
One of my concerns, but just for farm workers that own their own, is if they got a loan to the county or whomever, what would happen if they defaulted on their loan? And that's where I'm meeting. But it's the county's problem.
But if it's not on your.
Or the county repo, somebody was gonna repo it and now there's no house. So, just. That was just a concern. I don't know what the answer is, but.
Chair recognizes Daniel Campbell.
Yeah, well, I really think Ross pointed out, I mean, obviously we want everyone to live in mansions and that's the ideal. But the reality is right now we have RVs in the county that are housing 20 plus people. And that's the reality of the situation. Like, I mean, yeah, there have been multiple situations where I've heard of, well, they just found this RV and they'd legally hooked up their septic, or they were dumping their septic in the field and it had 20 people in it. I mean, I think that's just the reality of what's going on right now. And I think people like to close their eyes to that. So we need to take a step in a better direction rather than have perfection be the enemy of good.
Yeah, I think that summarizes the question you give. I think is the thing because right now the situation is just regular English and all I'm saying it's just fine.
These are, if you're finding with 20 people or there are working on farms.
No,
and
no, I
you
do. No,
or
I
it's
agree.
just like and choosing that.
I mean, I don't know. There there's people who couldn't afford a little house and
And to clarify, I do know of situations where I haven't heard of 20 people, but I've definitely heard of like, 10 people on a little, 23 foot RV. And so, and those are folks who working on farms. And I've also heard of a lot of situations just from both the farming community of just having, housing is basically divided by curtains. It's, 5 feet wide, basically, brings up space that are coming back essentially. They're just situations that are not safe. And I think there's a lot of farmers in our community who live full time and we are living down. And so I think the issue that I perceive is that, we either can kind of just pretend it doesn't happen. But the reality is that how price of housing is so expensive goes. It's not really safe for folks to buy things, and realistically, it's not. I think it's for folks to rent things outside of the situation where, frankly, to a large degree, it's farmers who have put together housing and it's rolling out and making work to make it beautiful. But I think we have to add more this year than much. And housing, obviously, the workforce for farming has gone down over the years. But the reality is we also don't have a lot of stock. There's a lot more specification of the codes. There's a lot of ones for farmer has been taken out as well for different reasons. And so
Chair recognizes Martin Johnson. So originally Moon Ridge was specifically built for farm workers. So Mid-Penn Housing is in charge of that. So how can we get those units back into farm worker housing? Because that's what it was built for. And when you paid your rent, you had to bring your check stub showing that you worked at least 20 hours a week for an agricultural operation. Now, Mid-Penn Housing changed those rules, and now the farmers and the community is affected by it. So the agreement was that Mid-Penn Housing was going to provide this farm worker housing. So don't you think that they should be held accountable? Like, why is everybody else having to jump through hoops to provide housing for their workers when we already had something in place that was working just fine? So I think Mid-Penn Housing should come to the table and give us some explanation of why it changed and why they can't start accepting farm worker housing. Is that something that's realistic? Is that something that we can do? Invite them to come and tell them or ask them and let them know about the situation. And
Well, I think it's a good thing to, as the work plan chart suggested, to, figure out timelines of these things, figure out partners, things like that. So that would be a potential partner that you want to, that you need to talk to essentially for this. That's my recommendation.
Can we provide some feedback as it relates to the work plan? So the specificity about creative ideas about addressing the urgent need for housing is really good. I think for the work plan, it is really important that the action items are structured to be largely within the AAC's control. So recognizing how complex and how many regulations are in play for farm labor housing under the planning and building, environmental health, housing, community development, and the state level as well as the water boards. It might need to think about how we shift that to be like exploring XYZ creative options and permitting reforms, and then we can list out these specific ideas and identify the partner that we need within the county, within the state, for us to explore these, and where are the, kind of pinpointing where are the barriers, where are the regulations, where does prohibits this from. Just so it's very targeted of what AAC is able to do versus what farming is able to do. But I like the direction this is going in for discussion. There is a lot of with the farm labor housing streamlining effort, LCP amendment that we are working on right now. I'd say overall the focus is on permanent farm labor housing units, but we know that RVs, that a lot of people are living in RVs, and things that are considered temporary housing often become effectively permanent, and those are often most of the situations. And so we need to figure out ways to address the concerns, make them safe.
Jack, maybe have Tom.
Yeah, agree. Just two comments to your question, Aaron. So, when I purchased the Bay Cities property, I actually was told that when Bay Cities went out of business and there were 300 workers that no longer had farm jobs, that they were all desperate to still prove that they were actually farm workers, and many of them had to get jobs in other areas. And so they were like, do we evict these people, or do we let them stay in their houses? So I think that was a big part of the Bay City shutdown. And I guess the other thing is, at least for me, half the day is way too far from my farm to have something you can commute every day. And then I can do that. The other point, I guess that's yeah. Yeah, I mean, they could take the bus, but it's a long commute.
Is there any comments that you might have on the subject? Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say that one of the comments was that, temporary, RVs being temporary, is true. There are a lot of rich white people who live in RVs year round all the time in May. I've talked to the RV park owners, and I say, well, and there's like all kinds of movements how they get around. So it's kind of a class thing a little bit, that if you're rich, you can live in an RV all year round, but if you're not, that's something we call out.
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. Also, the structure and said, I think that's really helpful. One of the things also is obviously regulatory areas are not my areas for experience. I mean, there's been some good times that I was in my programs. So maybe we can sort of pastoral and approach is studying those areas. I think the one other thing I was going to mention also is, I think I totally agree with you in terms of the topic of homework. I think the challenge, though, to a large degree, is that obviously in this room our focus is on worker housing, and that's serious crisis. It's also just a housing crisis. That's the goal. And I think to a large degree we have a county where, over in Pescadero, we're a very rural, fairly remote agricultural community. We don't generate the same types of income that folks, generate like steadily into fintech. There's other examples in the coast that have single chats families. I know I've heard, I even sure folks for community against them, but I've heard that the spring and review spot already. School district is trying to propose allowing RVs to be parked on the school parking lots, because there's almost a third of all students in these schools are on the spring. Like that's the degree of the crisis that in our town for different moments. And obviously that's not a farm worker housing, but a lot of the folks who work in the range of funding this is that there may not be farm workers currently, but they are folks who work, it's not largely, tech workers working remotely, who have needed to be able to move elsewhere. And so I do think regardless, we have to kind of open up additional routes, even when doing the actually to control that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
Maybe the previous farm workers.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard topic, honestly. These guys, I know there's a lot of folks who they started who were farm workers and now work in construction, for example, and they wouldn't necessarily have other housing they could afford at this point in time. So I feel a bit mixed on that particular topic, but I think the overarching thing is we need more things of that nature throughout the county, and especially in all those regions that was border and Pescadero, we're pretty far from nothing there, where it makes sense to have some version of housing kind of for for farm workers and
I think you have a little movie to Pescadero.
yeah, and maybe a lot of
Yeah.
I agree. That would be the solution.
I got a few comments. In the 80s, they had county explored about putting in sort of little new bridge invested area where the transfer station is, and it didn't go any further than that. The other thing too that I want to talk about, I understand what you were saying, Nicole and Daniel, that you would like to be able to have farm labor housing that was affordable on your own farm, so therefore you'd have the workers with farms. I get that. And the only first thing I would say that pertains to that and farm stands, whatever we think about doing, I want to make sure that we do something that doesn't take away what we have already. Meaning like, jump up to farm stands. Farm stands when we used to have hard farm stand years ago, it's just, I know we had to sell what was in San Mateo County, but we're allowed a certain percentage that could be sold out of the county because there are certain vegetables and fruits that were grown in our county. And that's important because if you're going to just sell a small amount of items at the fruit stand, you're not going to be. So therefore, it gave us that flexibility when you're saying earlier to have it the same as the produce of the farmers markets. I disagree with that because it makes it that you won't make it in the farm stands. It's just when you go to the produce market, you're there for a few hours and everybody's coming and saying, and you leave. It's one thing versus a roadside stand. So it's back to my comment earlier. Whatever we decide, I don't want it that we say we should do this and that. That makes it more restricted than what we already have because of them handcuffed stuff. Back to tiny homes. I did talk to Steve Monowitz myself as well, and there was a tiny home that were never advertised in the company, and I forget the name of it. There was a car that they had parked there for several months across from the lot that he, and they had one of the things that Steve Monowitz was concerned about, that it had the HUD stamp and the other stamp, the state one, and this company had both. He said they were in compliance of what he was looking for. And so and he was actually a little bit intrigued to point that out. And so, and I agree with you, Danny, that you don't need a mansion. You need something there to help. And like James was saying, we had a lot of people that were single workers and just one kind of home for single worker. It could fit the bill. And as long as it fits the criteria that what the county's looking for, and as long as the property owner has the proper water that is in compliance with the county, and if it's over 25 people, compliance with the state and the environment for the septic system. And I have visualizing that working and helping the small farmers and all, especially a farmer like you, Cole, that you don't own the property and you don't want to put a ton of investment into the land, but something that works, that if you put an investment in the water, something, and they brought in their own tiny home to live in or whatnot, could make work. The other thing too, I do want to make mention real quick, like this is the property that your farmer lived in the farm for 73 years. On the west side, there was a farm in housing that housed 25 single workers that the owners took down because it obstructed the view of the ocean, and the owners were the ones who were promoting that they're saving ag farmers, where they took away the water and they took away the farm house and whatnot. But anyways, in closing, just make sure whatever we decide, we don't take away from what we have. We're kind of thinking that this is good, that in fact, taking something away. And would you like to share with what you shared, Crystal, which we have?
Oh, yes. My clue.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Just a quick question. You mentioned CPC.
Yes,
What is that?
certified producer certificate. It's any farm that sells in farmers markets in California has to get one. It's regulated by the county and department. And usually the way it works is you have a primary service with your own farm, and they come out to just verify what they're saying, bro. And then you can get secondary certificates for drilling other farms you source me from. Which I don't know have to be in the county. I'm not familiar with that regulation. But the idea is that if somebody comes at your farmer's market stall, for example, it verifies that what you're actually selling them is something that you sell, or it's something under certificate for the farm that source of that you have. Also has a CPC basically and verifies the actual. So you're not just selling it on those by those possibilities.
Before one more for I also seen saw it before in the past few times when you're saying, when Daniel was saying for a small farmer, I said if there's any way that if the property owner would set up like a small RV park for a farm and bring in their own RV, and so that way if they're seasonal year round, that could work without the owner putting in the big investment in the huge farm living housing. But it could be the small ones, so we couldn't fit the families. Wouldn't be massive. But anyways, any more comments on that before I go on with?
One, is there a way to save it on the even?
I have no idea.
Or Angela will tell us when it's public comment. If something.
But who's on participant? Sleep on.
Oh,
And
cool.
that person is the live one, right? What's?
And then, so just going back to what Daniel said, because he did make a good point that when they said it's closed, all those farm laborers who lived in Moon Ridge, it's what do? We evict them. But because that was years ago, at what point, like, how long do we let them live there before we do an audit or require? Because if Midpen, I'm not saying Midpen is part of the problem for allowing them to stay, but if they're going to be okay with allowing non-farm labor live in farm labor housing, shouldn't they be held accountable to that being part of the solution to find additional farm labor housing? Because now I know like it's being put back along the farmers. And after the shooting, now it's a big emphasis that, you know, emphasizing how we need farm labor housing, but we had that. So it can't just be farm labor housing, it's the housing shortage overall across the board, but it's being focused on farmers, which is not good for publicity. So.
I it's interesting, Crystal. And I'm not disagreeing with you, but I also know that Bay City, first of all, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm looking a little bit differently in a different way. Is Bay City, I know they chose not to put up any farm labor housing because they didn't want to be involved in it at all. But the little farmer that chooses to want to have farm labor housing on their farm, and this has nothing to do with Moon Ridge. We should see if there's a way we can do so, like Daniel and Cole are doing. So, and that's not saying, well, if we fix this at Bay City, you have plenty with true, but I think, like me, I would still rather, even if you had abundance of farm labor housing available at Bay City, at Moon Ridge, I would rather have my workers on my property because it helps me better. You get it? So what I'm trying to say is, we should still have that option.
We should have it. Yeah. What I'm saying is that if Midpen now owns Moon Ridge, and it's been 10+ years. So in 10 years, I mean, how often are we doing the audit? How holding them accountable? And if, but maybe Midpen can then be like, look, the big picture is half of your farm labor housing is now being housed by non-farm labor housing. Let's come together and fix this and have Midpen also help us fix it and provide housing so it's not just put on the farmers, especially with all the little farms.
Actually, right. I'm saying it's two separate subjects because the one subject is they want farm, they want farm workers on their farm.
I don't think this is a disagreement.
No, I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I'm saying if we need a smaller, like a mini Moon Ridge down in Pescadero for the farmers who don't really want the farm laborers on their property, or they just don't feel comfortable living on a place where they work. We can't just have people living in random 10, 20 people in the RV. It's not safe, but they should all have their own space. Let Midpen help be part of our solution though. They took half of their housing or allowed it.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Oh,
Okay, okay.
Well, you're making sense. It's just I say there's a separate category.
Right. And we all know that the
Yeah.
Moon Ridge does have farm laborers in there who choose not to live on the properties they work at, which they're all entitled to making those decisions for themselves. How many do all of your workers live on the property? They do. and they're all happy. They like,
They would prefer, yeah.
say, okay, and I know you have had a wonderful experience with your family, and they all like it. I would like to not have to commute myself, so they would give to me and win-win, but there are families who can't do that. But I'm saying if Mid-Penn took the housing away from it because they couldn't just evict them, maybe they can help provide additional for the people who don't want to live on farms.
The echoing on the little Pescadero. One of the big factors that I feel that it'd be hard to Pescadero's water because the municipal water in Pescadero, CSA 11, is deemed for the township, and it had to go through LAFCO just to get it to go to the high school. And here, Buckley is adjacent to the whales of Pescadero, and I offered a sizable amount of money if they could hook just bring the pipeline to my property, and I would hook up to the pipeline. And it said because of the process, LAFCO and steam from township, all these things are so. I just don't see that happening in the near future, just because availability of water in Pescadero, public water. So
No, we're brainstorming some
Yeah.
ideas, but I mean, Danny brought up a good point. When you close up that property, we're gonna farm workers who did qualify for this housing no longer do. And they're able to take it, to still live there and take the housing away. Now we're a shortage of it. We need to come together with them possibly to help provide additional. And not put it just on farmers.
going,
Yeah, I agree with Tom. And I was just gonna say, the great point is, I think it'd be very interesting because a lot of times in this committee, we've talked about Moon Ridge and we've made assumptions about who's living there. Hasn't all that actually been done at all? It would be really great.
there was a study done.
How long ago?
It wasn't that long ago that we complained about it. And,
I mean, it would be great if they had someone to just go and say, how many of the people
Yeah.
living here are active farmers?
Justin?
There's some baits.
Yes. And it's actually not a town thing, it's a city thing. So it'd be responsible, the responsibilities put on the city of Half Bay, not the town.
Interesting.
Are they in city limits?
I think they're
They-
both.
But
Sure,
I
very
think
good.
the city, I think this, I was told that the city of Half Bay is oversees that property, so it would be up to them to get on independent about doing the audits and turning on that area.
I think there was an audit.
Well, the census could. Yeah.
No.
I have one more thing to say about the farm stand. I agree with you, Peter, that in order for the farm stand to make a viable operation, and I think the 10% or a small percentage of produce could come from out of San Coming, for example, avocados.
There,
And he says it's not really going to be a very profitable operation if it's only produce from San County.
I totally that. Yeah, I think that there needs to be a percentage though, and I think there needs to be sort of at least it's hard to measure this, but somehow it's right.
Yeah.
You know, for example, for us running, the food out of Grand County, we sell to a lot of sushis and we have to source. About 25% of sales come from out of the county, which then Santa Cruz County and other county, because there's just a lot of crops that like they have a month of in February and March that actually need last year. Is that time of year? And so, and we don't even get into like the exotic crops that would look like. So that's just more like, broccoli and lettuce and stuff that is just tough to grow in our region in early and for example. So I think, I do think it makes sense that you have some degree of flexibility with that, but I think there definitely has to be like a good faith element of you actually have to be actively following the cameras and then because the flip side of just everything is from some of the seller homes are.
Yeah.
And you bring it in from Mexico, that's starting to be, yeah.
There is, I don't remember what it was, but I think the ordinance, if I remember correctly, it was like 40% outside of San Jose County. I don't remember what it was, but there was, when we had our farms, there was a certain amount. And my point is, whatever we decide, I don't want to take away what we already have and make it or make it less. Like we might be thinking, 10%, 20%, and maybe there's something that's already 40%, if I'm correct, that is greater. So before we make any decision and stuff, we should look at what we already have.
Yes.
So that way we don't have anything in particular.
The existing,
Is there any more comments on the subject before we move on to?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there were two, it sounds like there was two major items that you proposed. Is that correct? Or was there another one? Did I miss?
There were 4 actually.
4?
I can share this document, that's something. Yeah, or do you want me to just recap briefly what was there, or?
Yeah, sure,
Sure, just a quick recap. So I remember one was one person in the county land department handles all permitting, where they moved back. Which is different than most persons who are moving this up. Item number 2 is allow local homes or homesteads on that property, as this would help with, I think, with being generational. And even if that's not the case, we're just help with some of the potential housing crisis. You know, I think if there's a second home, you know, let's say you have a farm, the farm team, for example, that you live in on part-time standing for housing, that could be for that as well. Item number 3 was the farms manager talk that we discussed, and it was about trying to ensure that it's being done on some type of lowers. And item number 4 was the kind of like tiny home time. Yeah.
Did you discuss for item number 3 at least, like the partners or the timeline? It sounds like maybe, I don't.
Yeah, catch that out. I mean, we're gonna ask everybody to send over to Robbie but I think we'll probably need another round to flush the top further. So if you didn't get there,
Okay.
I got a question. Cole, when you talk about multiple homesteads, are you talking about something different than on labor housing?
You know, I didn't this is more your topic. So I knew this adding more regular solid use. I was getting more solid.
Yeah, you know, this came out of early meetings from the AC where people talked about how where we don't have multi-generational farms now. We're losing farming on the coast. And the comments I made was, well, I can't have my children live on my farm, which basically ensures they're never going to take over that farm.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere for them to live. And you could say, well, they can live in farm under housing, but they have to work on the farm right now. But that's really impractical because, you know, they can get a higher paying job right now and they want to do that and want to do that. But if they still live on the farm, they will be much more likely to take over the farm and continue to run the farm and then die. So that was the idea, is actually allowing multi-generational housing on the farm to ensure that the farmers survive long term.
We had our workshop here a while back, over a year ago, and that topic came up. One of the things that we did talk about, is, what you're saying is as far as changing for farm owners, property owners, that if the children work on the farm instead of being out as now, the farm maker housing 20 hours or more, it'd be or 20 hours or more, or if the majority of their income come from agriculture, so that way there, if they worked, and this is where we that the subcommittee with Steve Monowitz, and he did like the idea, so that if the children were contributing 20 hours or more, they could live on the farm regardless what they make. So that versus how it is now.
Oh, currently it's an and.
It's
That would be an improvement.
yes. And we're probably going to revisit the items in the next meetings
that can be agreed on at this committee. And we're going to go back to Steve Moderates to as a follow up. And yes, that we couldn't like to say it. We couldn't really get that they work nothing because we can see that there's going to be some pushback. But if we get it at least then, if they work 20 hours, so therefore they can work, say, off the farm, say a cattle person, say that he had to turn out and he went to go to veterinary school as a veterinarian and he's county's practice as a veterinarian, but he lives on the farm. He needs help taking care of the homestead, his livestock. That's a win-win. And so that way there. Yeah.
I just want to maybe suggest that this subcommittee takes that over essentially. So would you feel comfortable giving, would you want to take over that? And as if it's a follow-up meeting with Steve, let's say, as an action item to meet on what he was just saying, it seems like I want to just make sure we're getting action items and stuff.
This was already approved by our committee, what I talked about, and it was already presented to Steve Models. And I want to make sure that people that present it to them, that subject is to just.
Yes, I'm just saying.
Maybe our committee can just invite this one.
There you go.
What'd you say?
Although, yeah.
What we already approved of this committee months past, we already moved forward and we're going to follow up on that.
Right.
Without any change.
Okay. If it could be good to offer that since you're also now working on another subcommittee with James, so that's all.
Jeff.
Oh, yeah. Is your subcommittee back to movement? Are you going to recommend doing the is that going to? Yeah, I can think the ending of the city.
Yeah, I can talk to the city about it. I mean, having conversations with them.
Because I looked it up and instead of talking referred to it with the city, but it's really.
It is in the county.
Complicated. Yeah.
It did mention big city, so I figured you would kind of.
Because, you know.
And in London, they also provided water and sewer. But and the city has taken kind of an overseen part of the it's hard to hear mid because you have a regional open space, but you also have a housing which does manage that place. And so you have to really be careful when you talking about which one of those agencies you're speaking of, because they both play a role up on the coast in the south. And that's what you.
Yeah. Okay, I can take that as an action item to pass.
Okay. All right, moving on to the next one.
Okay. So my subcommittee is to focus on community engagement and coordination. We'd like to engage the farming community and coordinate with agriculture related partners to hear ideas and collaborate on approaches. The subcommittee was myself, Sexual, Little, John Bars, and Adam Sayre. It was suggested that we provide time in the AAC meetings for farmers within our county to present their needs and skills and ideas. And maybe have 3 or 4 speakers of local farmers annually, almost like a mini workshop that we kind of did and bring up and kind of challenges that they see out throughout the year that could improve farming, improve cooperation with the San Mateo County agricultural related organizations such as the AAC, the Farm Bureau, the RCD, county planning, mid-pen, etc. And organic and conventional. At the end of the day, we're all one goal in mind, and that's to keep ag on the coast and grow our crops and sell and support our families. Promote new agritourism guidelines. And I think before I got on that committee, there was a new agritourism guideline being put together. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so where we're saying that we need to promote our new agriculture guidelines, I think that needs to be rolled out to us first, or so we can see what it is and then start promoting it. Like it being promoted.
Should know if it gets approved by the council.
So we don't know that it has.
It has.
It was not been implemented by the county. I know this committee did a fair amount of work on that, some years back. The bottle is in the county's part with this, which really has to do with a lot of staffing. But, I think in particular to those guidelines, the next step would be for staff to prepare initial draft versions, circulate internally, and then send to AAC for. So an AAC work plan item could be provide feedback on the latest. Okay, so we're interested. Well, I was gonna ask if it's in your guys' support, you haven't provided anything for us to get feedback on. Does that really need to be on our work plan? But I guess if we're going to stay on there. Yeah, it's
Making sure that's being us.
I think yes, I think
Okay.
it's worth it. And we'll keep it on top of our agenda. Yeah, right.
so yeah, unfortunately, none of my committee members joined me. So I wasn't able to get a whole bunch of, I know that I think Natalie had suggested between the workshop and our ideas sessions here at Debbie, inviting farmers. So I know she wanted to really spearhead that. And put ideas. I mean, of course, a better working relationship with the farm bureau, the RC county planning would benefit everybody. So we just don't have a work plan put together yet, with timelines and.
Are there specific farmers that the committee hasn't engaged with recently that the committee wants to?
I'm not quite sure where Natalie was going with this. I mean, maybe it would be good to remind the old timers that we are here to help them and maybe also engage with the younger ones coming up and let them know that we are here. I mean, I don't know what her end goal for that one was. I talked to her. And I would think about that. I think that even though we didn't have a formal work plan, that was something that AAC did in recent years, where you all organized a workshop and you had people come and you really spearheaded that. And so I think that if that is something that it seems like people were really thought that had a lot of value. So that could for me on work things could be something like at least once a year, invite outside or invite growers or whatever within the county to speak on topics related to in the county. So, you know, it could be structured as general or specific as you want, but it could be, you know, you don't have to drill down on what exactly that looks like, but it could be something like a component of the AAC's regular work is that on a yearly basis, at least you are, you know, trying to convene other growers and other people in that space to talk, no problems, think about solutions. Yeah, and I think we did as a committee go over that and put them in categories from row crops to hoop houses, and then I think just we need to put it back on the work plan and make sure it moves forward. So that's the plan. That's our tips. So sorry, I have not much fun.
Any comments?
Or ideas.
Krista? This committee?
Yeah, so your topic is kind of continuing maybe the work plan
It's
stuff.
like,
In that case, Peter's item that you mentioned earlier, is that something that I'm trying to get rid of your comment, but not get rid of it, but make sure it gets done.
the Steve Monowitz meeting.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, we're gonna follow that.
and Natalie's part of that as well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
And-
you might, I
and-
mean, it could
and-
be,
And
maybe
Crystal
it's,
was on
it's your
second-
committee that
Yeah,
wants
yeah.
to.
Crystal was on the subcommittee with us.
I was on the subcommittee, I wasn't able to go to that particular meeting with now with Peter and Steve. I could see it benefiting both ways. If they're spearheading and putting on the work plan, then maybe inviting Natalie and Pete, or having Natalie and Peter continue their conversation with Steve and inviting any of these three, if not all three of them, to the conversation. It'd just be more support for Natalie and Peter to excite to see what their end goal is to accomplish. Or saying that if it was Peter joining ours and we took, I don't know if we mentioned right or wrong.
I want to continue people that started it because I don't want to slow down the process that we already got the ball. On much that we had our workshop with already here. And so
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure it gets listed as, you know, if somebody's leading it.
So we could just add it to ours, but you still be in charge and spearhead that. Right? Does that sound okay?
I don't want to go any broader from what we're already doing because when it gets bigger, it normally gets slower. And so, and like I said, we met with him over a year ago on some committee, and like I said, Crystal couldn't make it, so that I went and presented. We agreed on this committee, and then it was 3 items. I don't remember the 3, and then one of the 3 was that I mentioned earlier. It was about the farm labor housing changing for property owners and farm owners, so that way they could live on the farm. And Steve was really intrigued about that, and then we passed. And I like to follow up on that with our subcommittee rather than incorporate anything, because when it gets bigger, it gets slower. At least our segment gets to get going, and the secondary segment can do whatever that wants to do as well. So, and Chair recognizes Jamie Cooper.
So what she's asking to do is to just put that meeting that you're gonna have with that existing subcommittee as a bullet point on their agenda. That's all she's asking. She's not asking for the subcommittee to be involved, but it just needs to be put somewhere on work plan so that the AAC says that it's going to be moving forward. This is one of our purposes.
So that's no problem. The way I like the way it's changed.
Okay.
Is there any other comment?
Any comments from me in my total work plan?
Oh, well, it's just to invite farmers. I mean, it can be an open invitation for each monthly meeting or one,
Yes, and I'm still, I wasn't sure if,
because as things come up for farmers, they might need addressed sooner than in 6 months,
yes.
right?
So that's what I said, I don't know if she had something in mind.
Oh, yeah.
I know this subcommittee, because she had suggested that at the workshop, so I don't know if she had like an idea.
Yeah,
She
okay.
really wanted to fit that.
James comments about that would be that any farmer and any person in the public is always one of the most different at their meetings, if they have something specific. One question I did have though is I wasn't sure if Rocket Farm was an actual day or if they were hunting.
There's nothing big.
Is there any more comments from from our committee?
Can I add one additional thing, which is kind of this can kind of far recognize it. Sorry, I'm both. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Yeah, we got, so, as far as, one other item that I think was not in our bigger committee was kind of right of working. So I think I didn't believe in this one period. There's an area and I feel pretty passionate about is, trying to have a county have a policy regarding sourcing of county institutions, that source produce, that a certain percentage is sourced by owners of San Mateo County. It's been my experience that when different institutions have specific targets as far as their policies go, even if it's relatively modest targets, even 10%, it's actually been quite effective because it's really opened up conversations with built the lowers because there's a need to source liquid. And that has often led to like better relationships and creating development opportunities. So I do think that's something, I don't know which group committee that's traditionally longer, but it's something that I feel strongly like on this because of policy for Santa Cruz County. And I know a lot of other counties, you know, have stay in the country for some as well.
Yeah, I don't think that thought voting exercise that we would vote did. And things we may have done in the past if we have a meeting in place. So I do think that that's really interesting. And if the committee is interested in seeing that on the work plan, we can figure out a place for it and one of these three groups.
Is there any more comments from committee? Not, we're going to be moving on. Thank you, members, for your questions. We will now open public comment for item 2. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Is there any public? Yes, Chair recognizes Mary Burke.
Good evening. Energy and wisdom, this great topic. And I just hope that by distilling your comments into a work plan, that you can capture these and really be able to get everything into, you know, some action items so you can really stay honed in and focused and accomplish some things, either if it's for informing the county or even to have guidelines so that when you review projects that come before you, that you have, you know, some information that you've already developed. You don't have to go back and look at the memory banks, but I'm just really appreciate the level of effort that you're putting in. And that these are challenging topics and a lot of them are interrelated, but keep at it and appreciate the efforts.
Thank you, Carrie. Is there any other public comments? If not, is there any comments on Zoom?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have no comments on Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We will now close public comments for item 2 and begin member discussion on this item. And this is any comments from the members. Did that. Now,
But can I just ask that we're able the work plan, people are on computer, just get it to Robbie and he'll work on compiling, bringing everything together, all the good ideas. To create the first draft of the work plan for your review.
And it'd be great if you could put it in that work plan template chart.
But if you don't have it in that, helps. Better just hand over the paper. We just don't want to lose any ideas.
Okay. Call me.
I'm scared. My note is discussion and entertaining motion.
Oh yeah.
Do we need to do that?
I mean, what would be maybe the next steps in terms of this work?
I think the next step is that the ideas. I think we'll probably take a pass at it and make some suggestions, doing the changes along the lines of this is a better fit. This would be a better fit for the work plan if you just framed it differently so that it was more within the scope of AAC control. And then we'll prepare a first draft to send back to the committee. And if we're able to do that before the next meeting, then that would be great. We want to make sure you all have enough time to review and to continue the discussion. But I think folks made a ton of progress tonight. So thank you all for your input.
Good. Yes, I was just texting with the city. They said Moon Ridge is county, and I think it'd be something we could.
Okay, moving on. This is we will now move on to item 3, meeting location and time by Robbie Miller, staff. Presentation that allows staff to give us a full presentation. It's all yours, Robert.
Thank you, Chair. All right, since my presentation is pretty short, I'd like to go through the entire presentation before I take questions, please. Next slide. So just to go through some background on our AAC meeting location and time. So our official meeting location is actually still at Adcock Center, even though we haven't been there for a couple months. And let's see, so this all kind of started county staff at the request of members have been exploring new locations. Some members sought unlimited time. Some were seeking a better layout, specifically the chair. The chair wanted view of the public members and members as well. If you remember, the Ted Adcock Center was quite small, so and rectangular, so it was a little awkward for her to see everybody at the same time. Okay, so then May meeting, we voted to have 2 meetings here. And tonight is that second meeting, and we voted to vote at that second meeting on our permanent application. I think it's a good opportunity to bring up again SB 707. I had briefly shared this with the committee a few months ago, but essentially last year there was a Senate bill that amended the Brown Act to authorize remote attendance at meetings for members of eligible bodies. Okay, so earlier this year, the Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution that recognized AAC as an eligible body, and would just require a majority vote of the members to allow it. Okay, so again, in short, AAC is eligible to have remote meetings for members. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there because we kind of glossed over it a few months ago, but that might help if people are really struggling in finding a new location, especially one that's really far away for some people. Okay, so and then so far we've looked at 4 locations have been explored: Half Moon Bay Library, the old train depot, this office here, and one that you haven't heard yet and I will present is RCD. So that was a resource conservation district in the city of Half Moon Bay. And if you could go to the next slide, please, Angela. So Eliza reached out to me and said, you know, there's unlimited time here. You can have this office space. I went to visit right before last meeting, so I have the pictures up ready. But essentially, it's really small. Yeah. It's even kind of smaller than the Ted Adcock Center. So I don't think it's going to fit our needs. At full capacity, we're not even at full capacity here, right? We have 3 unfilled positions, and so this just would not work. Next slide, please. So that's just another view of the railing every time.
That's
Yeah. So yeah. So here we go. So it's kind of coming down to the Half Moon Bay Library versus this office space here. In terms of the layout, basically, I think the Half Moon Bay Library is a little it's rectangular, obviously, and a little difficult for layout. I think we saw, but I think we could manage it. Last time, Jess, I think, pointed out that we couldn't see everybody on the video, but I think we could manage that by just pushing the tables further. And so I would kind of get the upper hand in terms of layouts of this space here. This is a big space. We can do multiple layouts. In terms of stock time, Half Moon Bay Library, we actually have the room starting at 5. Okay, so we've been starting meetings at 6 and now 6:15. But if we want more time, theoretically, we could move up a little bit And I think, so that I did want to throw that out there because that's been a concern for folks and a desire to have unlimited time, or at least more time. And then the District 3, so this office space, so unlimited time is kind of a gray situation because I've heard that the management locks the doors at between 8:30 and 9. And we have a kind of an agreement with them basically that they'll keep a door open so we can have our public meetings still running. The doors are still, and they don't lock from the inside, so we can get out in an emergency situation. But I think I wanted to bring that up because to say this, if the management changes, I don't know if the space will be will have the same freedom. So I kind of it's kind of a toss up between stop time, in my opinion, who wins on that. Equipment, I think I lean towards the library. It's a little bit newer equipment. The acoustics in there are great. They also have a projector screen that falls down from the ceiling as well. They have staff there that can help in terms of technical difficulties as well. They can help set up things for us. So I would give the upper hand to the equipment, to the library, and then the location. I'm giving it to the library just because it's more central. And for those people coming south when you feel hot or so on that, I will basically let's see. Yeah, so in terms of next slide, please. So for the staff recommendation, I'm recommending that the AAC hold regular monthly meetings at the Half Moon Bay Library with a start time between 5:30 and 6. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
So when you have going back to the SB with 7-11?
Yeah.
So remote meetings, I thought we could join remotely, we just couldn't vote. Did that change?
No, it hasn't changed. That's why we could SB 707 would allow then members to be online and vote and fully participate.
And vote.
And vote.
Even if they're out of state.
I don't. I'd have to get Brian on.
No, I haven't seen online.
He's not online.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to get back to him.
Yep. Doesn't it say if you allow my third period not here, you have to say believe in water? Is the guy only the rate?
Again, I'm not very versed on
It's always a participation option, but you have to post your location. You have to post at your hotel, for instance. I'm having this public meeting. So I'm not sure if AB 707 changes that requirement. But it's not as easy as I think even with AB 707, I don't think it's as easy as just participating from anywhere.
Okay, because I thought when it was before, we would always listen, participate, and we just couldn't vote. So I'm just wondering if that changed.
Even participation, county council has advised folks not even to participate.
And just
I was not allowed to participate.
see that's what I'm asking.
So I would recommend that we put this as there is some provision for remote participation, but it's under specific circumstances with noticing, noticing in the location you are at, which you may not want to do if you're on vacation, for instance. So I think we should put this aside. I think our county recommendation is regardless of what's possible, the default should be that the members meet in person and the staff is in person. And so we could consider that more of an edge issue and not get
I guess my comment that would be, I am so curious. So I would like to hear back of what the actual regulations are for that, because I am interested in remote participation. But yeah, like I said, I was always under the impression that if we were going to remote, that there is all this kind of saying that could tell people where we are, and like where we are could also be on public meeting sites, so people could show up to where I am. Yeah, so yeah, if something about that has changed, then I'd be interested. My other question, I guess, is if we're considering moving forward, my brain again, because it's like I need to eat. It's I've never seen people eat here before, so just, yes, yeah, yes.
I think Marilyn had her hand.
So, I can't speak for the farmers, but I remember hearing that 6 o'clock was hard for them to get here to start. So moving it to 5:30, and it doesn't make sense. I know you're trying to, provide a longer meeting period. And that might work in the winter time, like that's how we did it in previous years. And then in the summertime, our meetings started later because farmers were out in the field because it's lighter. So, I. So that's confusing. I think it would be much better than we start time either 6 or 6:20 in the summertime, because that's what we're full and he's coming the farthest. Right. So,
Well, that's what I'm choosing. This one. I just gave the option of, we do have that room in Half Moon Bay Library starting at 5. I would not want to do it too close to 5 because there might be something programmed ahead of it and I could find it out, but just to give some time also to set up. So that's why the 5:30 was chosen, or recommended. Again, it's more for you all that wanted the more time. So I'm just pointing out that we could potentially get more time at
but we could spend longer time here. Like we could be,
But it's a question.
Well, so
So the amount of extra change there is a question mark dependent on the current manager.
And there are lots of members in the committee people want to. You want to get time in, home in time for, time in program.
it's once a month.
So my other comment, our comment was, again, going back to SB 707, which I know you're going to be clarification for us, but if we were to participate remote, if you show up, do you count, does that count as the quorum? Or if they don't get to vote, it doesn't, even though they are there.
My understanding is you're fully participating if you're following that, you're.
As long as you're disclosing where you are going, so they, okay.
I don't even know if you really have to disclose anything if, and I could get more information about that for you, but I think you just can participate fully as a member.
Okay.
Online at your house if you want.
Okay, that was just more of a clarification.
Yeah.
But then going back to the doors locking here between 8:30. Any person who of the public who's interested in joining this meeting is not going to be showing up after 8 o'clock when the scheduled meeting is supposed to be over by then. They would definitely be there while doors were still unlocked and it would still be classified as a public meeting. So I don't think putting this off the table because of the doors closing or getting locked by between 8:30 and 9 should cut that. It's just like,
It just might not follow having a public meeting.
but the meeting started.
But being fully accessible. So that's why I raised that also. There's a question mark of do we need full access all the time when we're actually meeting in person?
So they said between 8:30 and 9. That
Yeah.
is there, the doors will be open and close between 8:30 and 9.
So essentially right now they've closed their, at between 8:30 and 9, they're gonna lock everything, but have like a door open up over here, I believe. Um,
Right, so it's still, there's people.
sure.
Okay, there is a door.
I would just like to make a counter point, because the other perspective has been said so many times, that there are many of us in the committee that want a hard-ended time and want the meetings to be shorter.
But it's in our bylaws. Starts at times of the day of the month. I don't think there's a time in our bylaws that we just like, oh, that doesn't mean that that's the way we need to run the meeting. So I just, from a staff perspective, we are not opposed to meetings that go on longer because of our staff time. That's not the concern. The concern is this is a advisory committee of volunteers. I think we need to respect people's time. So if, and that's not to say we should devote ample time to important matters, but if we choose a location that is considerably more difficult for a number of our members, and then they don't come to the committee meeting, then I think that's a problem. So I do think we have to weigh that with, in terms of the participation we're gonna get in one location versus another. And I also think that a 2-hour meeting is completely reasonable, and that we can work together as staff and committee members to make sure that the important business is handled within 2 hours. I think that's totally reasonable. Many of our advisory committees operate that way. So I don't have any concern from that.
You're losing participation because of this. And it's really.
I can
Does that counter that?
I can respect what you're saying about the 2 hours with volunteers, you wanna get us in, you wanna get out. But I'm also going back to what James commented earlier, when we don't have enough time, or we don't have that enough information, we don't want to table things. So if we're trying to keep everybody happy and not table things and be able to get finished with a proposed project that's been brought to us, sometimes we will need more than our 2 hours to get through that. And so what do we do in a situation where now we have to leave at 3 o'clock?
My counter to that is, instead of my issue with the table is at the time we talk about tabling things, the recommendation should have come from the AC that we don't like this, we should just disagree. Or we should recommend things instead of just continuing the discussion of everything's wrong. It should just be, we don't like it, it's why. And I think if we do that more often, we can get out of here on it.
Yeah, and maybe we could have just a procedure where the standard is we end by 8, unless the majority of the committee agrees to discuss things past 8.
No, we can't do that at the library because we can't go past 8.
No, but that's not the problem.
We do have a hard stop at 8:15. So we could go a little past 8.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example was we had the meeting, we were there, and they were at 3. But we were finished, we had just a little bit more to do, right?
I mean, prime example is we're only on topic 3. We haven't even been presented anything that we need to really go over. It's 8:05 and we still have more things on the agenda. Granted, they're not going to take that, but I'm just we're already past 8 o'clock and we haven't even gone over anything really.
Yeah, well, we did have technical problems with that. We started late, so that was partly my fault, so I apologize for that. We have a new chair tonight, so
We did great.
but I think the projection, or we are generally consolidating things, making things more efficient. I think, so I do think it's feasible that we have a 2-hour window. And I'm getting more experience too, learning the committee, learning what items might trigger more conversation, and having more conversations with chair and stuff like that. And so the more that happens, I think the more we can make things more efficient. And I think that that's been happening. It's just, it might be.
And I just want to say, the done, we said we come here for 2 meetings. Well, we can have them. The staff's making a recommendation, you should throw them one way or the other. Well,
Just one brief thing to explore is, I know it's tough, I mean, I'll speak stuff for myself, I always think to get here from as far south as I am, but I do wonder if we did, regardless of which location, start earlier, but what James said, bring food, I don't know if that would be possible or not, that would be a pretty simple solution from, at least my perspective, we're in having that just maybe I should say, make it 15 minutes earlier, actually be more reasonable. I don't know how you guys would feel about starting, regardless of whatever location, say 5:45, for example. And then we plan on ending tentatively and for example, we do the library, if we plan on ending at 7:45, if it goes over, then we have to go extra half hour, take 15. That may be an option. And if this is not necessarily if it's only one or another, I can kind of up in the air, but I don't know, guess that's thoughts on how you can get ahead of the term.
somebody needs to make a motion.
Yes. Go ahead.
Well, I would like to motion that we resume.
Pardon me, through the chair, we do need to open public comment before motion.
Okay.
Are we done for comments here? So we can go on public?
Like I said, just making this comment and that suggests that we had a plan. I think we go back to half the day and then pause and reflect and then have a vote. That would seem what input.
Yeah. Let's just make a decision.
You can't make a motion to it.
Right.
Sorry.
And I don't think I have anything else to say.
Okay, how about
But
public
is there
comment?
public comment?
Yeah, public comment.
You covered it.
Is there any comment online?
Yes, we do have one hand raised from Eliza from RCD. Eliza, you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for your thoughtful discussion and provide the perspective from somebody who joins remotely fairly often. I live pretty far south, and this is a great way for me to stay informed. I also watch the recordings if I miss the meetings and have been attending for a couple of years, both in person and online, and I will just offer the perspective that it has been very difficult to hear a lot of people throughout the years, both at the TED Adcock and at this district supervisor's office setting. The one time that I joined online and you all were at the library, the sound was very clear and every person's voice was picked up. So from that perspective, I did feel like that was a really positive remote experience. So I just wanted to add that into the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on Zoom?
Peter, I do have one clarifying question.
Chair recognizes Marilyn Johnson for the comment.
So until we know exactly what SB 707 like can we vote? I'm not.
Yes.
We can. No, so will we get if on SB 707 can we can join remotely? Right? Because that's what the
Only if the committee votes, a majority of the people vote on that. That's not.
so it's a separate thing.
It is a separate thing.
It's a separate thing.
I brought it up. So because I knew there's a division between folks that are having trouble coming out, traveling all the way here. And so I wanted to bring that up again so people know that that's an option actually. So when you're thinking about this vote tonight,
But how can we vote if we don't know what the SB 707 is?
because you're not voting on that particularly. That's just
no, it's a separate.
it's no reason.
I don't know what SB 707 says.
You're not voting on that. That's the, just,
I know.
just to keep in your mind that that's an option later on. It has to be agendized, and that specifically has to be agendized and voted on for that to happen.
I understand. Okay.
All right. Anybody gonna make a motion for me?
The motion to keep the meeting here.
I'll second that.
All in favor, who's in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's do a vote by,
Angela, for the vote.
let's do it right here, right now. You want me to do it or you want to do it, Angela?
Do you suggest a time?
Okay. Okay, Jess Brown, do you? No, I can. Okay. Crystal,
Yes.
James,
Abstain.
No,
Yes.
I don't feel strongly, but I would say no. This pass on having.
okay, we don't have a majority vote on this, it's 2-2.
So you vote too.
Abstain. Go ahead. And maybe another motion.
Okay, make a motion to keep it at Renewal's office, but change the start time, whether we start earlier or later to accommodate the farmers and others who develop. That's I know Justin, and he's not a voting member, but he probably does drive a participant than any of us. So he also has the go home after, but you probably are second.
Right. South. Yeah.
Yes, but to accomplish.
can I just say that, go ahead first? So Eliza's point actually was very interesting to me because the times when I did try to join remotely, it was basically impossible to follow on or participate. I obviously didn't ever try and join remotely when we're at the library since I was in person at the time. But depending on SB 77, whatever it is, there are lots of times when I'm traveling that I would love to be here and participate, but I'm not allowed to right now. But if that does happen, which I think it should, because I think it's crazy that I'm willing to participate in your meetings, I'm not allowed to. I would want it to be in a situation where I can actually hear what's going on. So I think to your point, Marilyn, this other issue that Robbie brought up is actually potentially quite important.
It is. That's why I'm saying.
So, which is why I suggested maybe we.
You didn't understand.
No, I didn't. That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you.
Are you making a motion to have the?
Well, this was making a comment, but my suggestion would be that we go back to the library.
Can I make a-
Go ahead.
Yeah, just to contextualize before I make the motion. I don't feel strongly about this. I kind of want to find that solution that seems to work for everyone. I think the concern of having, meetings not relevant to finished topics, I think is a very non-concern. I think also having to the library is probably a better location for a couple of other reasons. I would say if we didn't have to, I would make a motion that we would do the meetings at the library starting at 5:45. Our goal would be to finish at 7:45, but we have an extra half hour into May 15. An extra half hour, generally speaking, should be sufficient and not really all that different from the around the county. We're right now we're at 6:15. It sounds like I need to be out of here at 8:39. By doing that, that would allow us to have the longer extra half hour window. Or if we do run over, we have a half hour to finish this. And then I think with some things to be a bit of a compromise in terms of some of the concerns. And I like James' suggestion of I don't think we have to make a motion for this, but if we need to bring food, we need to bring food. Because that is kind of an issue. Yeah, I don't know if that seems like a fair compromise, but I'll leave my motion. It's not still saying to the next second.
On the fair thing.
Wait, till we get to discussion.
Yeah, discussion.
The room is very small. So if we have more than 3 people in the audience, there's not enough room and we'll be over capacity.
Are you talking about the Half Bay Library?
Yeah.
I disagree. There's quite a bit of space for public.
What's the capacity?
I don't.
That's important. We should know what the capacity is.
Of the AOC's.
Yes.
It's not too small.
Okay.
And what we average attendance public wise, we can definitely accommodate our average attendance.
In this larger rooms, they're very.
When I set up chairs last time, I could have put out a lot more, and I had 6 or 8
There's that same
chairs.
problem with last time that was hard for Natalie for the chair to see the guests. Right? So is there a different way to configure the room?
Well, she figured out she beat it out, so she made it work for her. So she made it work for her.
At the library?
Yeah. And she's not always going to be chair. It's supposed to change every year. So
Right.
I don't think we should just base it off of one person. The layout situation. I honestly don't think it's an issue.
Or just a thought also on that, because it is a little tight, especially in the first meeting, it was a little weird with that. Maybe actually for both this side or that side, I think actually having the horseshoe shape be actually the opposite direction. Because I feel like we really don't look at the screen, generally speaking.
Okay.
Unless it's a presentation like from someone on the screen, in which case we can move through chairs around.
Okay.
I feel like it's actually more important to look at it again. That might be a better orientation regardless of side.
Yeah.
Like having dressing on the space.
Yeah.
Issues, because I feel like if you get the other way, you probably get more chairs kind of in the background as well.
I agree. But
Got a motion by Cole with our second, by Daniel. All in favor, say aye. Got 2, do a roll call and then vote. Crystal? Yeah, just first with lied.
Listen, sorry, I don't even know.
Could you repeat?
No.
this?
No.
No.
I don't want.
Things that the library.
Okay, James,
Same.
okay, you're a yes. Marilyn?
no,
No,
Yes.
yes, still 2-2.
If we're not able to come to an agreement, the committee is to be able to get a majority to support one location or another, then staff will make the decision. And again, we want to do so with the input. I think we've heard a lot from members about what the challenges are with various locations, but we need to be informed from this topic.
Okay, I make a motion that until we get clarification of what SC 707 is, we don't get to. We put this vote on the table for next month.
It's again, it's just it will allow you to be remote participation fully. I don't think what else do you really need? I mean,
but you said you weren't sure.
Yeah.
of like the technical, if you're traveling out of state,
But those,
Right,
we need to
those
know
are,
that.
we need to know that.
Those are important.
I think
because
it will, in general, I think it's going to follow mostly the Brown Act.
Okay,
which
but
I thought said you could not vote.
I don't see why is it so important that
because then if I could stay home
Every
or be, somewhere else,
I
it
have a
doesn't really
motion.
matter where the meeting is.
I motion that we meet here next month and then we resume this topic next month. Because I really need to go home.
Do I have a second on that?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
I
Okay, you're next. Month.
So time-wise then still 6:15 here then that we're just
Or we can bring in food.
It's
Go 6 then.
technically we've been starting at 6
Yeah, we do 6.
for the original vote for Cole and Nick. Okay, so we're not done yet.
Okay. Moving on, thank you, you having the versions of staff.
So and
Good.
you abstained from the vote
Yeah.
for Cole's.
Yes.
Okay. And then, it seemed, did everybody vote on the table? And even tabling the items next?
You want me to do roll call?
Sure.
Okay. Roll call. Okay. On what? On.
Stay here for next.
Yeah, staying here for next month. Okay, Christovich, yes.
Yes.
James abstained.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4 yeses. And
And
two abstains. Abstain.
So I don't understand why do people abstain? I was here, is this, why are you abstaining?
It's not important.
It doesn't impact
That doesn't matter if it's a year or not.
to bother other people's schedules.
Okay.
I do need to know who's gonna get in touch with me in terms of what exactly you need to know about this SB 707.
If we can,
So my personal
So it's just about being out of state. Is that the only thing I need to know?
I need to know.
Okay, so email me within a week from today, please, what your question is.
wait, are you gonna send us the SB 707?
I'm gonna try to get your answers about SB 707.
Well, and everybody can do it without the.
Okay, that's no good.
And I apologize again.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, moving on. This is the next, thank you. We will have, do we have any questions to staff from the committee?
I do.
Go ahead.
The one question I also recently been asked about, something else that came up. I was curious, because we were talking about all this permit deposit stuff. So I was curious about the status of the Stone Painting project. Because I've been sharing rumors that the Stone Painting project is still pretty empty. And I know that I had people living in my apartment or house member interested in being able to live in here, but they weren't able to qualify. And so I was curious on the status of that project, what the county thinks of it, and where we are with it.
So I don't know the status of the Stone project, but that is managed by one of our colleagues at that could provide a blurb on the status of that project in the director's report for next month. If that's perfect. Okay.
You need more comments from the public? Moving on, next item. Thank you, members, for your questions. We will now open public comment for item 3. Please raise your hand if you would love to speak. No,
I think we did.
I'm just reading what it says. Okay, anything on Zoom?
We already moved on. I think we moved on. Sorry.
Work?
Yeah, we're to item 4. So we're here. We're here now.
So the committee members updates and questions already did that.
No, that's item 3. Yeah.
Yeah, between 4.
Yeah, we just did 5. Yeah, we did that. So
I'm fine.
you're good.
I'm good, Chair. Now 5.
Does anybody else want to?
Does anybody else want to speak? Any other committee members? Okay, we will now move on to item 5, planning liaison report by Robbie Miller.
All right, between the time period of May 29th to July 3rd, there were no planned agricultural district permits were heard or considered by the board or planning commission. And then no planned agricultural district permits were received during that time period. And no CDX applications for agricultural projects were submitted during this time period as well. An additional announcement was just that the Daniel and Cole farmer ag business switch consent item was pulled from the June 9th Board of Supervisor agenda. And so that's to be continued, I guess. That's it. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions of staff from the committee? Okay, we're gonna adjourn the meeting. Meeting's adjourned. Time at 8:26.